I never used to be scared of my phone. It was just an object, a tool I relied on for work, messages, alarms, something neutral. That changed the night it rang when it shouldn't have. I remember it clearly because I was already half asleep, drifting in that space where thoughts blur and reality feels soft around the edges. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, screen lighting up the room, and I glanced at it, expecting to see a spam number or a late text. Instead, I saw my own name, my own contact photo. For a few seconds, my brain refused to process it. I actually laughed, a quiet breath through my nose, thinking it was some kind of glitch or delayed call log. I ignored it and turned over, pulling the blanket tighter around my shoulders. The phone stopped ringing. I told myself that was the end of it. I was wrong. The next morning, I checked my call history. Nothing. No missed calls, no outgoing calls, no weird timestamps. That should have reassured me, but instead it planted a seed of unease I couldn't shake. I spent the rest of the day replaying the image of my own name lighting up the screen, convincing myself I must have dreamed it. Stress does that to people. I'd read that somewhere. When the phone rang again that night, I was wide awake. Same time, same vibration, same name. My name. This time, I didn't laugh. My chest tightened and a cold pressure settled behind my eyes. I stared at the screen, watching it ring, feeling like if I answered it, something irreversible would happen. It stopped on its own again. No record, no proof, just my memory, which was starting to feel like an unreliable witness. Over the next week, the calls became more frequent, sometimes once a night, sometimes twice, always after midnight, always from myself. I stopped telling people about it after the first few reactions made it clear how it sounded. Jokes about sleep deprivation, suggestions to reset my phone. One friend told me I probably pocket-dialed myself somehow, which didn't even make sense, but I nodded anyway. I needed to believe it was something small, something technical. I turned off Wi-Fi, I changed passwords, I even replaced my SIM card. Nothing stopped it. One night, curiosity got the better of me. When the phone rang again, I answered. I wish I hadn't. At first, there was nothing, just faint static, the kind you barely notice. Then, I heard breathing. Slow, familiar, my own breathing. I froze. Phone pressed so hard against my ear it hurt. I whispered hello without meaning to. There was a pause, then my voice answered back, perfectly matched in tone and rhythm, saying my name the way I say it when I'm unsure of something. The line went dead immediately after. I dropped the phone like it burned me and sat there shaking, every nerve in my body screaming that something fundamental had just broken. I didn't sleep at all that night. I kept replaying the sound of my own voice, trying to find something off about it, a distortion, an accent, anything that would make it not mine. I couldn't. That was the worst part. It wasn't a stranger pretending to be me. It was me, or something that knew me well enough to sound exactly the same. Things unraveled fast after that. I started noticing delays in my phone activity, texts marked as read before I opened them, draft messages saved that I didn't remember typing. Once, I found a voice memo recorded at 3 in the morning. It was only a few seconds long. I sat there staring at it for a full minute before pressing play. The recording was quiet, but clear. It was my voice whispering fragmented sentences about watching, waiting, learning patterns. I deleted it immediately, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. I tried turning it off completely at night, but I'd wake up to find it powered on again, battery drained. I started sleeping with it in another room, then another apartment altogether, crashing on a friend's couch just to escape the silence that came with being alone. It didn't matter. The calls followed me, always from myself, always at night. I stopped trusting my own memories. I'd catch myself wondering if I was sleepwalking, recording things without remembering, calling myself without knowing why. That idea scared me almost as much as the alternative, because if it was me, then I was losing control in ways I couldn't track. If it wasn't me, then something else was wearing my voice like a mask. The moment it crossed from terrifying to unbearable came when I heard one of the calls play back in real life. I was in my kitchen late one night, phone on the counter, when it rang again. I didn't answer. I just stared at it, my heart pounding. And then, from the hallway behind me, I heard it. My phone ringing. The same vibration sound, the same tone. But my phone was in front of me, silent now. I turned slowly, every instinct telling me not to. The hallway was dark, empty. The ringing stopped, replaced by a whisper I recognized immediately. My own voice coming from somewhere inside my apartment, saying my name softly, almost gently. I ran. I didn't grab anything. I didn't lock the door. I ran until my legs gave out and I collapsed in the stairwell, gasping for air, my mind splitting between disbelief and certainty. The police took my statement seriously at first, right up until they checked my phone and found nothing. No recordings, no call logs, no weird timestamps. That should have reassured me, but instead it planted a seed of unease I couldn't shake. They suggested carbon monoxide poisoning, stress-induced hallucinations, sleep disorders. They told me to see a doctor. I did. The tests came back normal. That somehow made everything worse, because there was no explanation left that didn't involve something I couldn't see or understand. I moved shortly after that. New number, new phone, new city. For a while, it stopped. I almost convinced myself it had been a breakdown, a perfect storm of exhaustion and isolation. I started sleeping again, started trusting silence. Then, one night, my new phone buzzed. Unknown number. I stared at it, my pulse climbing, a sick sense of recognition creeping in. I answered without thinking. There was no static this time, just my voice, calm, clear, closer than it had ever been before, saying, "You shouldn't have moved. I almost lost you." The call ended. I changed numbers again. It didn't matter. Sometimes my phone doesn't ring at all. Sometimes it does and I don't answer. But once in a while, when the world is quiet and I'm alone with my thoughts, I hear my own voice behind me finishing sentences I haven't spoken yet. And that's when I realized the calls were never really about the phone. They were about letting me know I was being heard. I always thought the phrase, "you're just imagining things," was what people said to avoid reality. Turns out, it's what your own brain whispers to you when the truth is too terrifying to accept. I moved into that house because it was cheap and quiet, far enough from the city to finally sleep without sirens cutting through my dreams. The first few weeks were boring. I settled into routines, keys on the same hook, shoes by the door, one specific mug for coffee. I lived alone, or so I believed, and that belief was the foundation of every comfort I allowed myself. The first crack was small. I came home late one night and noticed my bedroom door was open. I always close it. I stood there, keys in hand, convincing myself I'd simply left it that way. That was the beginning of a pattern. A chair pulled slightly away from the table, the shower curtain damp when I hadn't used it, food disappearing slowly enough that I blamed my appetite. One night, I found fingerprints on the bathroom mirror that were higher than mine. I measured them with my eyes, my heart beating harder with each second. I pressed my fingers against the glass. They didn't match. My fingers were lower, wider apart. I wiped the mirror clean and slept with the lights on, telling myself it was temporary. But my house started to feel like it was breathing. At night, the creaks weren't random. They came in patterns, slow and deliberate, like footsteps that stopped whenever I held my breath. One night, I heard something that broke through every excuse. A cough, soft, restrained, human. It came from somewhere inside the house. I sat up so fast my head spun, adrenaline numbing my hands. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just listened. Nothing followed, just silence thick enough to press against my ears. The next day, I searched every room, closets, cabinets, behind doors. Everything looked untouched. That almost made it worse. If there was nothing there, what had I heard? Friends told me I needed rest. Family said I was working too much. I smiled, nodded, and stopped talking about it because I could hear the concern in their voices, the thought that I might be unraveling. Things escalated. I found mud on the hallway floor even though it hadn't rained. The attic hatch sat slightly ajar when I knew I'd never opened it. Then came the night I came home early. I unlocked the door quietly and froze. Movement upstairs. Not a creak, but fast footsteps. Someone moving with purpose. I stepped back outside, closed the door gently, and stood on my porch shaking until my teeth hurt. I didn't call the police. Denial is a powerful drug. I waited, watching my windows for a light or a shadow. Nothing happened. After an hour, I convinced myself I'd imagined it again. When I went back inside, everything was silent. I didn't sleep. I sat on my bed with a kitchen knife, listening to my own heartbeat. How much did they know about me? My schedule? My habits? The idea that someone might be watching me sleep felt like poison. I stopped showering with the door closed. Silence became a necessity, even though it terrified me. The proof came on a mundane afternoon. I was cleaning when I noticed the vent in the hallway ceiling was loose. I used a chair to reach it. When I pushed it aside, a wave of cold air and the smell of sweat, old fabric, and rot hit me. I aimed my phone's flashlight inside. What I saw shattered whatever denial I had left. A nest. That's the only word that fits. Blankets and clothes I recognized as mine, empty food wrappers and water bottles, all packed into the narrow crawl space. There were scratch marks along the wood, deep and frantic, like someone had clawed their way through in the dark. My vision tunneled. I backed away slowly, every instinct screaming at me to run. That's when I noticed the notebook tucked between the blankets. I opened it. It was filled with writing, observations, times I left, times I came back, notes about things I ate, shows I watched, when I slept deeply and when I tossed and turned. There were even comments about my moods, about when I seemed scared. I dropped the notebook like it burned and ran. I don't remember grabbing my keys or locking the door. I just remember running until my lungs felt like they were tearing apart, until I collapsed on the sidewalk, gasping, sobbing, realizing I never truly was alone. The police found him days later. He'd been living there for months. They told me he'd been using the crawl space to move through the house when I wasn't home and hiding when I was. They said it like it was a fact, something to be wrapped up in reports. But there's no way to package the feeling that followed me. The way silence still makes my skin crawl. The way I double-check locks even in crowded places. The way I wake up some nights convinced I hear breathing that isn't mine. People think the fear ends when the threat is gone. They're wrong. It just changes shape. It settles into you. It teaches you that safety is fragile, that your mind will lie to protect you, and that sometimes the most dangerous thing isn't what's hiding in the dark, but how hard you will fight to convince yourself it isn't there.
I used to pride myself on being rational. I was the kind of person who always looked for the most boring explanation first because boring usually meant safe. When I moved into that apartment, I remember telling everyone how perfect it was. Cheap rent, old building with character, and neighbors who mostly kept to themselves. The only downside was the noise, but even that felt manageable at first. Soft thuds at night, faint footsteps above my ceiling, the kind of sounds you expect when you live in a building that's older than your grandparents. I told myself it was just the upstairs neighbor, coming home late, pacing around, living their life. I even found comfort in it sometimes. It made me feel less alone. That comfort didn't last long, but that explanation stopped working the night I heard something directly above my bedroom ceiling, even though the apartment above me was supposed to be empty. I found that out by accident. I ran into the landlord one afternoon while taking out the trash and casually mentioned the upstairs neighbor, half joking about their nocturnal habits. He looked confused, not concerned, confused. He told me no one had rented the unit above mine in months. Renovations were delayed, the place was locked up. I laughed it off right there because the alternative felt insane. I told him I must have mixed it up with another unit. Over the next few days, I started noticing smaller things. The hallway light outside my apartment would sometimes be on when I got home, even though it was on a motion sensor that never triggered for me. The stairwell door would be warm to the touch, like someone had used it recently. Once, I found a muddy footprint on the landing above my floor, facing downward like someone had been standing there, looking toward my door. I stared at it for a long time, my mind desperately trying to force it into something harmless. Maybe a maintenance worker, maybe a homeless person passing through, anything that didn't involve someone intentionally staying hidden. I stopped using headphones. I stopped showering with the bathroom door closed. I started sleeping with my bedroom light on, convincing myself it was temporary, just until the renovations were done and someone officially moved upstairs. But the noises didn't stop. If anything, they got closer. I went back downstairs, grabbed a screwdriver, and returned to the hallway. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. It took longer than I expected to force the lock, every second stretching thinner than the last. When the door finally creaked open, the smell hit me first. Stale air, sweat, something rotten underneath it all. The room was dark, windowless, smaller than I imagined, but it wasn't empty. There was a mattress on the floor, food containers, water bottles, a flashlight, and on the wall, taped up in neat rows, were photos. Photos of the building, the stairwell, my door. One photo showed me unlocking it, taken from above like someone was standing on the stairs watching me. I backed out slowly, my mind refusing to process what my eyes were seeing. They caught him that night. He'd been living there for weeks, using the vacant unit and storage space, moving through the building when people slept. The police asked me how long I'd suspected something was wrong. I couldn't answer, because the truth was, I'd known for a long time. I just didn't want to believe it. Even now, I can't hear footsteps above me without feeling sick. I can't live in apartments anymore. And sometimes, when everything is quiet, I still feel like silence is just someone waiting for me to stop listening.